In the next half hour, you will see wild and crazy footage caught on tape. Some of it will shock you. Other footage will seem too bizarre to believe. Wild and crazy caught on tape. Location, Russia. In today's program, a landmark church burns to the ground. Soccer fans go totally berserk. A car plows into an old woman. A less than perfect ultralight landing. And much, much more. When things fall apart, we'll be there on Wild and Crazy Caught on Tape. Location, Russia. In this rare footage, a car attempts a jump from a springboard called the Goat. So the car hits the springboard and is launched into the air as the truck explodes. Somehow, now on fire, the car flies over the bus, lands, and decides it really doesn't like this one cameraman, who continues shooting until just about the last second possible. Somehow, neither he nor his precious camera were seriously hurt. It's astonishing, but the only damage he received was a little burnt hair. Ah, that smell. The soccer match began at 4 p.m. between CSKA and Saturn. A few minutes later, fans started throwing fireworks and torn-out seats onto the field. The problem was caused by almost 6,000 aggressive CSKA fans. Each time their team scored a goal, fans celebrated by throwing fireballs onto the field. Hundreds of cartridges ended up on the field. How the fans managed to get them past security is another issue altogether. There were a number of injuries as a result of the rioting and general bad behavior. Finally, the police got the situation under control. And if you think these fans are out of control, you should see the SPARTAK Tifosi fans. If you're a fan of crowd violence, go to a match between these two teams and bring your riot gear. The footage you are about to see happened on a warm summer afternoon. This woman found a great place to attract attention, a bridge right across from the Kremlin in Moscow. It seems she demanded loudly that the president of Russia give her a new apartment, or she would throw her daughter into the river. She does seem pretty determined. Just listen to her scream. She thinks the president can actually hear her. Fortunately, tragedy was averted when rescuers distracted the woman and took her and the child to a waiting van, and to safety. The most amazing part of this incident is that she got what she wanted. Now she'll have a new apartment, all by herself, in a mental hospital. The scene is a camp by a river near Khanty-Mansiysk in Russia. After a day of successful fishing, a group of fishermen build a fire and sit down to eat. Turns out, however, there are some uninvited guests who wouldn't mind sharing the day's catch. At first, the tourists don't know whether to drive away their unwanted guests or feed them. But then they realize that the young bears are more hosts than guests, this being their home turf. And after a long hibernation, they've lost a lot of weight and were willing to eat anything, including scraps. Look at how these bears approach the fishermen with no fear. It seems that starvation trumps self-preservation in young bears. After a plentiful meal, the bear cubs run back to the forest where their mother awaits them. In a way, the fishermen were very lucky. If the bear cub's mother had been around, this story might have had a far more somber outcome. Danger can lurk not only in forests and back alleys, but also at New Year's Eve celebrations. In this case, it literally flew out of a bottle of champagne. The cork nearly blinded a young Muscovite. Happily, the boy wasn't seriously injured, and the black eye did make him look a bit manlier, which actually may have helped his case with the ladies. It's hard enough to keep your balance when riding on two wheels, not to mention one, say, with a unicycle. And while we're here, let's take a look at some other incidents from the Russian circus. A recent survey claims that most spectators come to these things simply to see the bloopers. Every 10th audience member watches acrobats and hope that they will fall during the performance. And they can be quite disappointed when nothing terrifying happens. Yep, it's sick, but true. For the rest of us, we're happy to report that none of these folks were seriously injured. This is because they're all trained to fall from such a height. St. Seraphim Sarovsky Church was not only a sacred place of worship, but also a well-known landmark in the city of Beloyarsk, Russia. The fire that began to burn down the church was ignited by faulty electrical wiring. Despite firefighters' best efforts, they were unable to control the fire. One of the firemen was very unlucky. A mistake made by the aerial ladder operator caused the fireman to fall from a height of 30 feet. Thousands witnessed the cathedral's destruction. The church burned all day long. Before evening fell, there was nothing left but ashes. 2 years later, citizens of Beloyarsk managed to collect money for the reconstruction of the church. Here are the latest shots, the installation of the dome and a cross. You know what they say, out of the ashes. And don't forget about the brave fireman who nearly lost his life. This rather remarkable footage was sent to us from Chelyabinsk, Russia. A car driving at a pretty good clip runs right into an elderly lady. She bounces off the hood like a basketball. Incredibly, the victim immediately got back on her feet and walked away. She didn't even need medical care. In this case, the little old lady turned out to be tougher than the car, which ended up in the shop for the better part of a month. Experts claim that flying an ultralight aircraft can be as treacherous as rock climbing, for instance. Take a look at some proof. The most critical moments in a flight are during takeoff and landing. Fortunately, in this case, the pilot wasn't seriously injured. The car was another expensive story. And that wasn't this poor pilot's only expense. A new replacement kit goes for somewhere in the neighborhood of $3,000. The pilot doesn't know what he should worry about more, his health or his bank account. Perhaps he should worry about learning how to land. In June of 2002, heavy rainstorms overflowed mountain rivers in much of southern Russia. The upper Kubanya River was one that overflowed its banks. In the city of Novonomysk, a dam burst, and within minutes, the storm surge began to destroy bridges. This unique footage allows us to see Mother Nature on a tear. Look at it again. Residents of the nearly submerged houses struggle to save their belongings from sinking or from being stolen by looters. Experts claim that Russia hadn't seen flooding like this in over a century. Just look at this damage. This confirms that water is truly a powerful force of nature. Here's a lucky owner of a brand new car. One day he parks his car near the office and goes off to work. About 5 minutes later, a huge chunk of snow falls from the roof. Nearly half a ton of snow just fell on this poor guy's car, which will now need some serious repair work. Luckily, he wasn't in the car when this happened.